Hello and welcome to Sally's Custom Clayworks. Today we are going to be making monster mugs. This is a super fun thing to make in the fall when Halloween is coming up, and it's a perfect opportunity to get your creative thinking caps on and really make it your very own project. You can kind of copy along exactly what I do, but I would encourage you to get a piece of paper out and a pencil and spend some time drawing your monster. You want to think about the eyes, maybe how many you would like to have. You're going to think about the ears, if there are any ears, your nose, maybe what shape it would be, your teeth, your mouth. Also texture, you'll want to think about your texture. Maybe you want it to be a scruffy monster. Maybe you want it to be a polka dotted monster. It's all up to you in this fun and exciting project. Oh, and don't forget the horns. You might even want horns on your monster. So we'll talk about design in a minute, but first I would like you to gather up some of your supplies. You'll need a rolling pin, your clay kit with all of your tools in it. And I just pulled out a few that I'll be using, but you can grab the whole toolkit because you never know what you might need. You'll want your slip, which is clay and water that's been mixed together. You can give it a mix and put your paintbrush in there. You'll need your clay hunks. I've got one really big one for the body of our mug, a bottom piece for the bottom of the mug, a smaller piece, and this is going to be for a handle, and then a really small piece. This one is just for extra details like eyeballs and nose and that kind of thing. And you can always pull extra clay from your big hunk if you've been given too much, but we'll talk about that a little bit. Oh, and you'll also want your hardy board. This is really important to dry your piece on when we're all done today. So when we get closer to the end, I'll be transferring mine onto my board so that it can dry properly and you can transport it on over for firing. So we're going to start out just by drawing an idea of what we want for our mug. I'm not too concerned about the shape of the mug as I am what we want on it. So my shape is just going to be a generic cylinder. And yours will probably be too. It might be a little odd, but so I have my generic cylinder. I want to think of first about my eyes, and maybe I want to do 3 eyes. And I'm just going to do my mug upright, but you could even make yours upside down if you wanted. So I'm going to pick 3 eyes, and maybe I'll put my pupils in different places. I don't know. Get creative with it. Okay, let's think about our nose. Do we want to have a nose? Maybe I'll do a silly round nose. These are just ideas. You can play around with lots of different things. For mouth, I like my mouth maybe to go up. And think about, I can turn it around for you. Maybe some teeth. Maybe we want pointed teeth. That looks awfully silly. And think about your hair. I don't think I want any hair on my pumpkin. Maybe I want it to have some horns though. And maybe I would even make a horn into my handle for the mug. That could be an interesting feature. I don't know if I want it to attach or not. And I could always put horns up here, but maybe I don't want to do that. Let's see. And then texture, what kind of monster do I want? Maybe I want a really scraggly, hairy monster, or maybe I want him to have polka dots or warts. I like the idea of warts. Maybe I'll give him a big wart on his nose and some eyebrows. I don't know. It's pretty silly. So you can spend some time figuring out what you want to do. This will just aid you when you're making your shapes for your design. And wow, that is super silly. So I think we're just going to go with it and see what I can come up with just from that. Okay, so you're going to want to start out with your bottom piece. Or, yeah, let's start out with our bottom piece. We're going to take our hunk of clay and we're just going to bonk it with our hand. I'm using the palm of my hand, or if that's too hard, you can bonk it on the table. It's too loud to do that though. And once we get it like that, I'm going to flatten it out a little bit and then use my roller to get it about 1/4 inch thick. And I'm just going to roll it out and then set it aside. because I'm not entirely sure how big I want to cut this piece yet. This is going to be for the bottom of my mug, and so I'm just going to cut it out into a circle. If you have some cookie cutter circles, you could use those, or a Tupperware container. You can use a lid. I'm just going to freehand cut mine out today because I figured monsters are kind of funky shapes, and maybe my mug is a funky shape on the bottom. So, okay, so that's 1/4 inch thick, and I'm just going to set it aside. And then I'm going to start on my other piece of clay. Now this is a very large piece of clay. It's probably more than I need. I'm going to cut a little bit of it off. If you don't have a clay cutter, that's what this is. It's just a wire tool. You can just pull off a hunk of it with your hand. I like the wire tool.
Dental floss.
Or dental floss could possibly work. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on getting this piece into kind of an oblong shape, or a rectangle. Kind of. I don't know. You need to soften the clay. So this is essentially wedging the clay just by hitting it. And I'm using, again, the palm of my hand to soften the clay. And you could bonk it on the table also. But you'll notice I'm not really working it into a ball. I'm just trying to get it kind of long and narrow. Okay, then I'm going to flatten it on one side. And then I'm going to start rolling it. The idea is to get the biggest rectangle out of this that I possibly can. It's probably not going to be an exact rectangle, and that's okay. We're going to cut it, but we're just going to roll it out and try to get it into a bigger rectangle. And if you're a kid, this might be the hardest part for you, and you might need an adult to help you. That's okay. So I'm going to start rolling with my roller. And sometimes if you're using the handles, it's kind of hard to get it nice and even. You can also put your hands on top of the roller and roll it to get it even. My paper is kind of sliding around a little bit. I'm going to pick up my clay and turn it over and roll it out from the other way. And this is getting nice and long, but I don't think it's getting quite wide enough. So I'm going to turn it my direction to make it a little easier for me to get it wider. The idea is to make it as even as you can in thickness. So you don't want one side that's really, really thin and one side that's really, really thick. You want it to be nice and even. And you'll notice my shape is getting more of like a big oval. That's okay. I'm going to cut it down a little bit. I think my mug might be squatty and wide. That's what it's looking like to me, but that's okay. Maybe my monster is a fat-faced monster. We'll see. I think I like the idea of putting warts on him, but that might take a while. See how long that takes me. So this part might actually take you a while to roll all this out. It'll probably take you about 10 minutes to get it all rolled up. I'm making it look really easy. But if you're not finished, you can pause the video for a little bit and then come back to it. Now that I have this all rolled out, I'm going to make the biggest rectangle out of it that I possibly can. You're going to need a ruler and a cutting tool. This cutting tool can be found in your clay kit. It has a triangular shape on one side. You can also use one of the sharp pen tools if you don't have a triangular cutter. That will work too. Or if you have a potter's knife, you could use that. So I'm going to start just by putting my ruler out, and the idea is just to make the biggest rectangle out of this piece that I possibly can. So I'm going to place my ruler down and cut off the ends here. And I want it to be a fairly even rectangle, but you know, it's a face, so it doesn't have to be exact. I'm going to try to get a good 90-degree angle here and make it to the other side. I'm just going to push my ruler down a little bit. Cut it out. And we're going to do the other side. You can see I'm just cutting off all that extra clay. This extra clay is going to come in handy later. Whoops. It'll come in handy later when we're making all the little details, like the eyes and the nose and all of that.
Should we have an adult helping us just in case we might accidentally cut through a table?
Yeah, so it's hard to cut through the table with these tools. That's why I give you guys the brown paper. But you most likely will need a parent to help you with this part. It is hard to get a rectangular shape. Okay? The other thing we want to think about is this edge and how it's going to be attached. Today we're just going to overlap them, but if you're an adult and you want to try this, you can also cut the edges, one at 90-degree angles on one side and then doing the opposite on the other side. So this one's going this way. When it attaches on the other side, you're going to have to cut it the other direction under at 90-degree angle, and then they'll attach together nicely. But I don't really want kids to worry about that. You can just cut it straight off, and we're going to overlap the end just to keep it simple. Okay, so we have our first piece. And this is going to be our sides of our mug, and you can kind of pick it up and see how big it is going to be. If you decide that what you have is going to be too small or too big, you can always put all your clay together again, hit it with your hands and work it into a long piece again. Or let's say that if it's a little bit too thick, you could lay it back down, roll it again, and then just a little bit more just to even it up. This is fairly even. You'll see it's a little bit thicker on this side than it is on this side, but it's not too bad. The idea is to have it even thickness all the way around, and about 1/4 inch in thickness is good. So I can take my ruler here, and it's spot on to 1/4 inch, which is great. Okay, so we're gonna set this aside, and now I'm going to cut my base piece for my mug. Since I have this one all ready to go, I can just set it directly on top of it, and I can cut around it with my cutting tool. And you can use, again, you can use this triangle shaped cutting tool from your kit or a pin tool. I'm going to probably use the pin tool this time. And I can't see what I'm doing because well, that's making a big mess. I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use this one. Just cutting all the way around as close as I can without cutting into my clay piece, of course. Okay. So now we can put this guy together. And this is kind of the fun part. And for some it might be a little difficult. So we'll talk about it in slow motion. This is stuck together now.
Oops.
There we go. Okay, so anytime we want to put two things together in clay, we want to do something that's called scoring and slipping. And that just means to score or make little marks on one side and then score and make little marks on the other side, and then to add our slip, which is our glue. So I'll do that all in one step at a time. So let's suppose we want to put that other piece on top of this piece. I'm going to be scoring along this top edge because that's where this piece is going to be sitting. So let's say that this is the outside piece. It's going to be sitting on here. So I'm going to be scoring along this top edge. So here, okay? If my piece is too big and it could go all the way around the sides here, you could technically score this side piece here and then along here and put them together here. So just any place the two pieces of clay are coming together, any time you have two pieces of clay coming together, you need to score both sides. So no matter which way you put them together, if you put them together here or here, you still need to score. Okay, so I need to figure out which way I want to do this. Like I said, there's two ways I can do it. I can do it along the outside, which mine's not going to fit. You can see mine's not going to fit if I do it around the outside. I've got a gap there. So I'm going to want to do mine on top, and then it should fit pretty well. And I'm actually going to flip my piece back over. The reason I flipped it over like this is because I was going to tell you, you can put your name on it now. Now's a really good time to sign your work and put your name on it, because once your mug is all ready, or finished, you're not going to want to mess with it. You're going to want to just leave it sit. It's going to be really hard to sign it later. So I'm turning it back over, and now I'm going to do my scoring and slipping. So I'm going to score all along this top edge because mine fits better that way. And scoring just means to make little marks. So here we go. I'm making my little marks, and you can do, the score mark is to make like little hashtag marks. So I like to score all in one direction for a while and then come back and make little X's over the top. So I'm scoring all in one direction. And you do not want to go super deep when you do this. You want to do it right along the surface. Nice and gently. Okay, so I have that piece. Now, this next piece is going to go on top of it. So where do I need to score? Do I want to score along here, or do I want to score along here? Yeah, that's right. We're going to score along the bottom. So I'm kind of laying this over my table so you can see. Normally, I would turn it upside down like this and score it, but just so you can see what I'm doing, I'm going to score it this way. Making little marks all along there. This is really important, and a lot of kids will ask me, why do we need a score and slip? And it's because in the firing, the clay shrinks, and when the clay shrinks, it has a tendency to want to pop apart. So the scoring increases the surface area in which it can stick to each other. So we're basically just increasing the surface area, and then we're going to add our slip, which is our glue, and that is going to help it all stick together really well. And we're only going to add slip to one side. So I always like to add slip to the base side. So this is my base and this is the side. So we're going to add the slip to this side. If I had scored on this, the outer part, I would put the slip over there, but I'm not doing that. So I'm just going to put it along here, and I'm putting a liberal amount on there. I'm just kind of globbing it on. You'll notice I'm not painting it on. I'm not doing anything painterly or pretty. I'm just globbing it on there. This is my glue, so I don't want to be stingy about it. Okay, so now that I have that there, I'm actually going to turn this upright, and I'm thinking about how I want to tell you to do the side. I normally what I would do is I would also score here and here where this is going together and slip those together before I put that piece on, okay? So you can do that now also. So score all along this piece. If you are a kid and you didn't do the 90-degree angle thing that I was showing to make the edges fit totally perfectly together, you're actually going to overlap them like this, and you would score here and along this surface. But because I'm doing the adult way, I'm actually going to score that, I'm sorry, not 90-degree angle. I keep saying the wrong thing. 45-degree angle, excuse me. This 45-degree angle. Okay, and then slip that together.
Does it matter which side you do it on that one?
As far as the slip is concerned, no, just pick a side. Okay, so now I can kind of zip those together. I start from the bottom, working my way up, squeezing it together. You can put a hand on the inside, stand up, put a hand on the inside, kind of squeeze it together. We just want the seam to stay. We don't want any holes in our mug, right? We don't want a leaky mug, so we're gonna do a good job kind of pulling that together.
Unless it's a prank mug.
Making our seam nice. Okay, so now I've got that part on there. Now I can do this part here. Just gonna kind of plop it together. And again, you're going to want to work putting that seam together. So you're going to use your finger, smooth over the side, putting that seam, turn this around so you can see what I'm doing, putting that seam all the way around, making sure there's no leaks or holes. Okay. This is easier to do the more set up your clay is. So if your clay is super wet and floppy, it can be really hard to get it done. So you could let it set up after you roll out your pieces and cut them. You can let it set up for about a half an hour, and then you'll be able to put them together a little easier. Okay, so I'm going to turn this over very carefully and check my rim. Okay, so now I basically have the body of my mug together, which is pretty exciting. And now I can start thinking about all those really fun details that I was talking about earlier. So my eyes, my ears, my nose, my mouth, all of that. You'll want to decide which direction you want to work on. This side with the seam is probably where you're going to want to put your handle. Unless it's super thin and messy over here, if you put something heavy on this side and it's not very tight and well done, it's probably going to crack along the seam. So you might choose to do your handle in a different place and to do your face on the side. I'm actually going to do my handle along the seam so that it covers up that seam, and I'm going to do my face on this side. So I'm going to kind of change the shape of my mug a little bit. I'm going to show you how to do that. You do not have to do this part. If you want the sides of your mugs to just be straight up and down, you don't have to do that. I kind of want to have more of a chin shape, an indented mouth shape, and a shape for where my eyes are going to go. So I'm going to just kind of belly out this side just a little bit to make it look like it has a face. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to put one hand on the outside holding the clay. I'm going to put one hand on the inside, and on the inside of the clay, I'm going to kind of do this swiping motion. So on the inside of the clay, I'm doing this, and I'm pushing the clay out with my fingers, making it do what we call belly out. Okay? So I'm going to put one hand on the inside, one hand on the outside, and I'm very gently going to belly that bottom part out. I want to change the shape just a little bit. This is a more advanced technique and probably something that you want to do if you're an adult. Okay, and then I might just kind of press in a little bit on this side where my nose might be, and maybe decide where I want my 3 eyeballs to go. I'm kind of pressing in a little bit.
That already looks creepy.
Does it look creepy?
Yeah, you look like you have a skeleton head.
Okay, so I've got a little skeleton head going. I'm going to do this craziness that we came up with earlier, which is quite hilarious. I've got my 3 eyes, my nose, and my kind of open sideways mouth. And I didn't really do that on there, but maybe that's where that's going to go. And I don't think I'm going to do pointy teeth because it might be scary. I don't know. We'll see. I don't want to make it look scary. I want it to make it look cute. So let's start with our eyes. We're going to do our handle last. So for your eyes, you're going to want to get a couple of hunks of clay that are the same. If you want to have 2 eyes, you're just going to have 2. If you want to have 5 eyes or 10 eyes, however many you want, you're just going to get a bunch of balls, okay? We're going to make them into a ball. So I've got 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to kind of look at them on here and say, are those too big? And I think they are too big, but instead of pulling some clay off and starting again, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut off the back of them. And what this is going to do is it's going to give me a really good spot to stick them on. So I'm going to actually cut them in half using my triangular cutting tool. And I'm going to say, okay, that's much better. So I've got 1. I've got 2, and I'm going to cut 1 more. This is my 3rd one, and now I've got 3. And I'm not going to put it on there quite yet. I'm just kind of setting them there because this is going to give me an idea of about what I want to do. Okay, so I've got 3 there, and maybe I'll rearrange them a little bit when I can see what I'm doing. Okay. So then for the nose, you're going to think about your nose shape. Mine is kind of this oval shape. So
with the wart.
With a wart, yes. I'm gonna do all my warts at the end. And maybe you should think about nostrils for your nose as well. Maybe there are some nostrils. My favorite tool for making marks for like circles and nostrils and eye dots is this squeegee tool, and it is in your toolkit. It's got two ends to it. It has a rounded edged one, and it has like a sharper edged one. Mine's dirty, so it's hard to see, but it's more of like a rectangular shape. You're gonna want the round edge side for making nostrils and bumps, okay? Oops, I messed that up. Let's do another one. So you can always start again. If you feel like your clay is getting dried out, you can always put a little bit of water on it. And when I say a little bit, I mean a little bit. Otherwise, you're gonna make slip, which we don't want. Okay, so I've got my oblong shape for my nose. And I think it's just a little too big. I think I want a little nose. Probably a little too big still. So I'm just pinching off a little bit of clay. Okay. And where do I want my nostrils? I think I want my nostrils on the side. So I'm taking that squeegee tool and I'm just pressing it in. And now I've got nostrils and they're kind of funny. Maybe I'll turn them down just a little bit. Okay. So now he's got a funky little nose. And now I'm going to think about the lips and the teeth. Okay, so I'm going to build my teeth first. Because the fun thing to do is kind of lay your teeth in there and then build your lips around it. It makes it a little easier. So I'm going to decide how many teeth I want. And before I said I wanted pointy teeth. So we're just going to try pointy teeth. If they look too creepy, I'm going to go with square teeth. But for pointy teeth, I'm going to get a couple of balls of clay. Again, same technique as what we did for the eyes. We want them to be similar in size. Because you don't want like, well, your front teeth are probably bigger than your side teeth, right? So you could have the middle ones be a little bigger and then the side ones be a little smaller. Maybe I'll pare that one down a little bit. Maybe my underneath teeth are smaller than my top teeth. So my picture has 5 teeth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're gonna stick with whatever my picture is. But remember, as you're going along, get creative with it. If you feel like doing just 5 teeth isn't cutting it and you want it to be really super scary, or you want it to be really silly and do something different than what's in your picture, go for it. So I'm just going to change the shape of these teeth just by rolling them. And this technique is called coiling. Basically, anytime you make a coil, it's using the coiling technique. I'm going to not make a huge coil. I'm just going to kind of roll out one side, making this longer. Oh, dear dog. Sorry, guys.
I jumped.
Me
Sorry.
Okay, making it longer on one end. So I'm looking at this, and this is way too big. These are like Dracula teeth, so we don't need them that big. But I'm gonna actually just keep going with that because I can cut them down. So I'm making this wedge shape, and I can cut them down very easily, so I'm not too worried about how long they are right now. I've got 3 teeth. These are like scary clown teeth. Okay, so remember I was saying I can always cut them down. I could cut them down from this side and make them much shorter. I could even go even smaller if I wanted to, but I actually have a better idea. I kind of like this rounded side that I created by doing that. And I think that these might make really cool teeth. What do you think?
I like them.
Yeah, so I'm going to cut these off too. And now I've got 3 top teeth and 3 bottom teeth, which is super silly. And maybe I'll make them offset like that. You can kind of decide how you want your mouth to be. Maybe you even want to separate your teeth out so they are spacey teeth. Maybe you've got a space in between your front teeth or something. You know, make them silly. Do what you want to do. Okay, so I'm just going to turn this around and look for a second at what I'm doing here. Okay, bring the camera around if you want. It's really hard for me to work backwards all the time. And like I said, I didn't have a plan for this. I was just going off of my silly drawing. So we're just trying to figure out what I want to do as I go along here. Those are pretty silly. This nose is too low, so maybe the nose has to come up a little bit. But that might work. I think I might do another tooth. And I might actually cut them down a little bit too. Use that same technique that I did before to make the teeth. That worked out pretty good. So my clay is drying and cracking out just a little bit. I could put a little water on them. I don't know, play around with it. Take some teeth out, put some teeth back in, make more teeth, make less teeth. You decide what works good for you, okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut the back of my teeth off, kind of like I did with the eyes, just to help them to sit better. So I'm cutting the back side off using that triangular shaped tool again. See how much better they sit on there when you cut the back sides off of them? You don't really notice that it's missing. It's still the same shape. It just helps with having it sit correctly. So I'm just cutting a portion of the back side off. Not. And maybe I'll add, I don't know how many teeth I'm going to add in here. Yep. You can always change the shape too a little bit after you've cut them if they get weird. Whoop! There goes my nose. That's okay. Not too concerned about the nose right now. Lots of teeth. Just gonna go for it. Big toothy grin. And perhaps you want a tongue and all of that. You can just really go for it. It's totally up to you. Okay, so we have that. Now we need to start thinking about the lips. Oops, I think I just got rid of my nose. I did.
I was wondering if you'd cut it up and made it into teeth.
It's pretty funny. My eyes are gonna need some life in them, right? And they are probably gonna need some eyelids. So let's talk about lips and eyelids. We're gonna use the coiling method that I talked about earlier. Take a ball of clay, make it into a ball. And when you were little kids, you guys played with Play-Doh and made snakes. That's pretty much what we're gonna do. We're gonna make a snake out of this. And we're gonna make, so I'm gonna flatten it out just a smidge. This technique works really good for lips and it works really good for eyebrows, okay? So I don't want my eyebrow to just be straight across. I don't want it to be a unibrow. I want it to be more like eyelids. So I'm actually gonna just do one at a time and then cut it off. So I've got one there. I've got one there, and you'll notice that I haven't scored and slipped anything on. You still need a score and slip. I'm just kind of designing it right now, and then I'll get to the score and slipping part near the end of the video. Because what would be tragic is if I made all this stuff, scored and slipped it all in there, and then decided, oh man, I really dislike that nose and I want to take it off. It's really hard to redo it afterward. And I'm really not liking my nose at all. I'm gonna make it different. I don't know what I'm gonna do yet. Maybe he doesn't need a nose with that big silly smile. Like a gonzo nose. Yes. So with hand building, you can squish the clay any which way you want to make your creations. I made a coil with my hands and then I just started squishing it to make my nose shape. I want you guys to get creative and just give it a go. If it doesn't work, you can try again. It takes some practice to get used to what you're doing. So that's pretty cool. I like that. So I'm going to cut it off. Give it a good spot for attachment. That's pretty cool, but the eyes are a little low. So when I take those off to score and slip them on there, I might make them a little higher. Okay. Give my nose enough space. And I might turn it up just a little bit. So now I've got this upturned nose. I've got my spot for my eyeballs. 1, 2, 3. Where's the other one? 3.
Did his eyeball roll into his head?
Yeah, it did. It just changed shape. That's okay. I'm going to fix it later when I put it on there. You guys get the idea, right? Okay, so that's going to go there. Now I need to think about this lip. And the lip is kind of the same thing. We're going to use that same coil. And you might want it to dent in just a little bit in the center because your lip has that little spot there that kind of dents in. It doesn't have to be too fancy to get the picture. You can do it any which way. That looks like a mustache. And in fact, my teeth are a little too big because my mouth isn't wanting to close. So I can move those down. I'm going to do it like that. I kind of liked it when it, in my picture, how it kind of came up like this. And it was kind of sideways grin. And then this piece kind of met it. So I'm going to make a longer piece to try to reach that spot. Then we're going to score and slip everything on there. And we already talked about scoring and slipping, so I'm going to pause our instruction, score and slip everything on there. Or maybe I'll do it and see if I can speed it up for you guys. You don't have to watch me score and slip everything on there. It does take some time to do. Well, I don't know, maybe you guys want to watch me do it all again. That's kind of cool. Pinch it down just a little bit.
I think you should rearrange his teeth.
Oh, I will.
Okay.
I will definitely rearrange his teeth, especially when I'm scoring and slipping them on there. That's why I'm saying it might take me some time to figure out how I want to do all this. So I think what we'll do is I'll pause the video. I'm going to score and slip everything on there. And then we'll come back to show how to do the handle. So I'll see you guys in a few minutes. Okay, so I've scored and slipped everything onto there. Right now I'm just looking at some finishing details. I was thinking about adding warts to him and different types of textures. So you can practice with texture on an extra slab of clay. There are lots of different things you can do. You can make polka dots with this rounded tool from your kit. It's a carving tool that's got a loop on it. There are also tools in there that look like this, and these are carving tools. So you can carve hair into them, make them a hairy monster. You can do the loops and make dots like polka dots. You can also use, there's lots of wooden tools in your kit. You can use the wooden tools to make texture. The only thing to think about when using a wooden tool though is that it leaves lots of what we call burrs. And see these sharp areas that kind of come up? Once they dry and are fired, this turns into glass, and so it's going to be sharp when you touch it. So I wouldn't recommend doing that unless you're going to go back over it with a finger and smooth it out a little bit, just so you're not getting a bunch of burrs all over your piece, and then it's going to be sharp and you're not going to want to use it. Another way that you can add texture is by adding, this might be kind of fun, you could wait until your thing dries a little bit and then add slip to it, creating kind of a mottled texture to it, like that. The thing with that is that if once you do that, you're going to want to let it sit and set up so that it doesn't, you don't want to mess with it too much. If you do, it's going to make the whole thing wet, and then it's going to be really hard to work with. But that's another way of adding texture, is using slip. Another way to add texture is just by applique, and that's what I was thinking about doing with these little warts. I made up, well, and I also made up this little slug, and I was trying to figure out where I wanted to put him. My assistant thought it would be funny coming out of his nose, but I think it's a bit too gross. So I may or may not add him, but let's add some warts to this. So I made up all these little tiny balls, and this technique is called applique. That's pretty much what we did with our eyes and our nose and our mouth and our teeth. Is we made a bunch of appliques, and anywhere I'm going to put these on, guess what I need to do?
Score and slip.
Yeah, I have to score and slip, and albeit it's a small scoring and a small place to slip, I still should do it. Unless, the other way to add an applique is if you're doing what's called a smash and drag technique. Smash and drag technique just means you're putting it on there, you're smashing it on there, and then at least one side of it you want to pinch and drag. I like to use a tool to do it. Pinch and drag, and that's effectively kind of smashing it in there so that it's not going to come off. So you could do that all over the place with these warts. It's really hard to do it, so I'm out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. But see how I smashed it on one side and dragged it? That's another way of doing it. I kind of like having a clear, good sized warts on them. I don't like them being flat on one edge, so I'm not going to use the smash and drag method. I'm just going to score and slip them all on there and decorate the whole piece with it. But I think I'm going to do that at the end, because what I would really like to show you is how to make a handle for this. You're going to think about the handle in terms of, do I want the handle to be an ear or maybe a horn, or what do I want to do with this guy? So earlier I said, well, maybe we could just make a horn and make that the handle. So I'm right-handed, so if I was to drink out of this, you have to think about how you would drink out of this. I probably won't make this into, this is very big and heavy, so I probably won't make this into a handle after, or a cup that I'm going to use after all. I'll probably turn it into a planter. It'd be pretty cute with plants coming out of it. But let's say that I still wanted to put a big horn on it. How would you go about doing that? So we are going to make a horn. Okay, there are two ways that you could do it. Remember when we did our coiling method earlier to make the mouth? You could do that. Make a really big coil this time though. So I'm just going to wedge up some of this extra clay here. I never did need my extra piece of clay. And we're going to roll it down. And I'm leaving one end really thick And the other end I'm making thin, and I'm thinking it's probably gonna go like this. Now, I could leave it hang out like that, but I actually think it would be better attached so that I can put my hand in there. And you might even want to attach it so like that, and then it looks more horn-like. But you gotta think about your hand. So my hand doesn't really fit in there, and clay shrinks in the firing, so there's no way that that's gonna work properly, so I need to keep going. We also need to think about thickness. So this is a fairly thick piece of clay, and on this end here, this is much bigger than 1/2 inch. So if it's bigger than 1/2 inch, we have to hollow that out. So yeah, we'll have to talk about that too. But well, this is interesting. It looks like it could be a tail possibly and not a horn. Make it more horn-like. I like the fact that his mouth is curled. Maybe this horn is curled also. And I think it's probably going to have to hook on there so I can have a good spot to score and slip it. Okay, so let's say that I do decide that I wanted to attach this on here. I'm going to have to make a flat side on this. And I just cut it off at like a 45-degree angle. You can have a parent help you with this part too, so that it sits on there properly. So I've got that. And I've got that. That's where it's going to attach. I'm checking to make sure my fingers are going to fit, and sure enough they are. But I've also still got this problem that this piece is way too thick. So what I can do is, I can do two things. I can cut it in half to about here, where it's about 1/2 inch thick, and I can hollow it out. Or I can just take a tool and stick a tool into the center of it. This is what I like to do to hollow it out, and then kind of wriggle it around. Much easier than hollowing it out by hand. It's a trick, okay? Stick it in there, wriggle it around. Now I've got this hole in there, so it's hollow, and it's gonna dry much easier. The only problem is now, if I score and slip this on here, now I've got an air pocket, and we don't want any air pockets, because what will happen in the firing is steam will get trapped in here, and then when it goes to come out, it has to come out somewhere. And if it's trapped in here, it'll blow up. So we don't want that. So what we'll do instead is we'll put a hole in here after it's attached. We're going to take a pen tool, and hopefully you have a longer one in your kit that you can poke into the side to make it all the way through. See, mine didn't make it all the way through. I need a longer tool. Tool's not gonna work. I'm just gonna have to keep pressing from the inside out until I get there. And now I've got a little hole. At the glazing stage, we can cover that up and you're not even gonna notice it, but right now you notice it, right? But make sure it's still going through and through. Now, before you attach this, you can think about adding a texture to your horn. I kind of like the idea of having a horn that's got striations in it, so I'm just gonna use my fingers and create some texture.
Are you just using the tip of your finger?
I'm kind of using the tip of my finger and my fingernail. Making it look a little bit more horn-like. And you'll notice whenever I'm getting some of these burrs that are sticking up, I'm kind of smoothing them out with my finger as I go along because I don't want those sticking up. This is a much longer project, but it's so much fun. So fun to get creative and make it your own. I hope you guys are having fun too. Okay, so that's looking pretty cool, right? Maybe I'll add some on here. I'm just using the tip of my finger, kind of where my fingernail is, and because I have gloves on, this is a little easier than it would be if I just had my fingernail. Ugh, I don't like getting clay under my fingernails. not my thing. And you might be wondering why I'm wearing gloves. I play with clay so much that it dries my hands out. And so I have to wear gloves or my hands get so dry they crack and hurt badly. So I always wear gloves when I work with clay. Even on the potter's wheel, there's a little piece of something stuck in here. It looks like plastic. So I'm going to pull that out. Okay, so now I've got my horn. And I've got that there, and I'm going to attach it on there. I'm going to turn this over so I can see what I'm doing. And anytime I've been scoring and slipping things on, I've kind of just been tracing around it where it's going to go. Tracing, scoring, and slipping it on. So I'm going to score all of this. And if you didn't want a horn for your handle, maybe you wanted to make it ear-shaped or whatever, you can use that same technique, the coil technique, to make your handle. Just make sure that when you're doing a handle that it's not cracked anywhere along the way. So if you see a big crack in it somewhere, you can't use it. You need to start again, okay? Because what's going to happen in the firing is if you have a crack now, later it's just going to get bigger. We didn't want that, especially on something that you're going to use. If you have a crack in your handle, then it's compromised, right? And then when you go to use it, it could possibly break on you. So I'm going to put my slip on this side. Just glop it on, why not? Put some on that side. Sticking this on here, I'm going to stick one hand inside and press. Other hand up here and press. And now I've got my monster mug. I'm going to continue to work on him. I'm going to add some more warts to him. Maybe refine some of the lips a little bit. I don't know. It's not too bad. Not bad for a demonstration piece, but I think you guys all get the idea. So for the first day after you make this, you want to cover it. So I should have moved this. If you can, pick it up and put it on your board. The board is made out of cement. It's cement board. So pick it up and move it to your board. If you cannot pick it up, that's okay, as long as you don't need to move it. Go ahead and put a piece of plastic over it, leave it on the paper. The next day, you can even do it now. You can cut a piece of the paper out, then carefully pick it up and set it on your board. So for one day, you want to have it covered in plastic, and that will help this joint to dry slowly. If you leave it uncovered for the first day, what will happen is this will dry very unevenly and it'll crack right here. So we want to cover it for the first day. Then after the first day, you can uncover it. Don't cover it tightly. Just leave it kind of loosely over the top. The next day, take it off, and it should start drying like normal. You can always, after it's really starting to get hard, you can set it on its side a little bit so that it dries underneath, but you really don't need to worry about that too much. You could just bring it over to my house and I will finish drying it here before it goes into the bisque. So the next step on these is that they go into the bisque firing, and then you get to paint them, which is lots of fun. You can choose all different kinds of colors. I'm still kind of working on this. I'm pinching the rim a little bit, making it flare out just a smidge, and I'm also thinning it out a little bit. It was a little bit thick at the rim, might be not very comfortable to drink out of. This is going to be a massive mug to drink out of. I don't know, maybe it would be your cider mug.
Eggnog.
It's pretty cool. I like it. Okay, so I'm going to keep working on these warts, and I will see you guys soon for your glazing. I hope you enjoyed my monster mug creation, and I hope you had a lot of fun. I know that I did, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye! Hello, and welcome to Sallie's Custom Clayworks. Today we are going to be making pumpkin mugs. Try again.